Richmond's last Bay Trail ribbon cutting was 3 years ago, celebrating completion of the Shipyard 3 Trail by the Port of Richmond. Now the Ferry Point Loop and Shipyard 3 Trail are linked together, forming a recreational double loop. I hope that each of you picked up the trail guide sponsored by TRAC with funding by East Bay Regional Park District and the National Park Service. They're available over there on the table. I'd like to start off by giving thanks to those who made this event possible. To TRAC, that's TRAC, Trails for Richmond Action Committee, for the inspiration to hold this event and the hard work put into organizing it. Richmond has over 32 miles of Bay Trail, the most of any city in the 9-county Bay Area. As we will learn today, completing the Bay Trail requires many partnerships with both public and private sectors working together. Start off our program today by introducing Bay Trail Project Manager Laura Thompson, because we're going to get the big picture as well as the importance of state parks and bond funding for completing the Bay Trail. So,
thank you. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here this morning to help celebrate the Ferry Point Loop Trail completion. And I'm going to give you the big picture. 26 years ago was created to complete the San Francisco Bay Trail, 500 miles around San Francisco Bay. And that plan was an invitation to 47 shoreline cities, 9 counties, and numerous shoreline property owners to participate in a collective and ambitious effort. And so today we're here to recognize the enthusiastic acceptance of that invitation from the City of Richmond and the East Bay Regional Park District. Richmond, with the longest shoreline in San Francisco Bay and the most Bay Trail, is setting an example for the rest of the Bay Area. Richmond has all the ingredients that it takes to move forward with the Bay Trail. They have legislative champions, strong city leadership, hardworking city staff, also a well-established and effective regional park district, and of course, a tenacious local advocacy group, which makes all of this happen. They also have a very long track record of working in partnership, and I think that may be the most important ingredient in completing the Bay Trail, because it takes all of us to make that happen. Another important ingredient of completing the Bay Trail, of course, is funding. And the State Coastal Conservancy is just a primary partner in that effort. They have allocated over $22 million since 1999, specifically for completion of Bay Trail around the region. And about $760,000 of those funds have been put into the Ferry Point Loop. So now we must all work together to find more funding to complete the remaining gaps and finish what we've started. So I want to thank all of you for being here today. As we complete sections of the Bay Trail, we open up new places for recreation and active transportation, and we give people a chance to spend the day by the bay. So thank you all for your participation in this collective effort. Thanks.
Before I introduce the next speaker, I also want to note that Genoveva Calloway, San Pablo City Council, is here today. So we have a lot of foreign visitors here. We appreciate that. The next speaker will be Bruce Byard, Chair of TRAC, the Trails for Richmond Action Committee, who will present an overview of what was required to complete the Ferry Point Loop, illustrating the complexities and partnerships involved, including the important role of the private sector.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for being MC today. You've had good on-the-job training at the City Council being a master of ceremonies. TRAC was formed summer 1999, 16 years ago, and for this event, I was thinking about what a different situation we had on the Ferry Point Loop then. This trainmaster's building, historic building, was not here. This plaza wasn't here. This was a city street. The plunge was shut down after the Loma Prieta quake before its renovation. There was no park at Ferry Point. It was derelict railroad land with rail cars parked along the shoreline of Miller Knox. There was no Seacliff Drive between Canal Boulevard and Brickyard Cove Road. There was no Seacliff residential project. There was only 1 mile of existing Bay Trail, and that was a loop built around the lagoon in Miller Knox Regional Shoreline back in the mid-70s. So the landscape's totally changed. Talking with a reporter a few days ago, the reporter asked, you built 3.4 miles in 16 years. Why did it take so long? What have you been doing? Well, the short answer, it takes access to land and it takes money. So that's the story, a big story on the Ferry Point Loop. Before I tell that, though, I'd like to introduce the members of the track steering committee over here, and I'd like you all to stand up if you're not already standing, and to hold your applause till everybody's been introduced. There's Bruce Brubaker, who's vice chair, Nancy Strauch, who was vice chair until a couple of years ago, Donald Baston, who with Fraser Felder, his track's interpretive arm, has prepared all these beautiful trail guides, interpretive panels. Whitney Dot, already standing. Whitney. Kim Hampton, who organized all the food today. Andrew Butt brought all the furniture in. And Jerry Rasmussen. I think I got everybody. So it's 8 of them. So this is a hub of the Bay Trail in Richmond, really a hub of the East Bay, because you have a spoke radiating out this way through Berkeley and Emeryville all the way to the east span of the Bay Bridge. And then you have a hub going out this way that will next year connect with Point Pinole Regional Shoreline, but now goes not just short of there. And you have a spoke going this way around the Ferry Point Loop. One of the first things Track did was to get grant money from the city of Richmond to complete the Bay Trail between here and Marina Bay, and then close a gap off to the north between the Iron Triangle and North Richmond. And in building the trail way to Marina Bay, part of it's bike lanes here on Cutting Boulevard and Canal. But then the real focus and the real challenge kicked in '99, and that was with the Seacliff residential project proposed out here, the intersection of Brickyard Cove Road and Seacliff Drive. Well, there was no Seacliff Drive then, and all the land there was owned by the Bottoms Family Trust. There'd been an old rock quarry. There'd been hazardous pollutants there from World War II shipbuilding. But along came SunCal to get permits for a residential project on Bottoms land. And we thought, wow, this is a good opportunity to complete the Bay Trail out here. And we learned that Bottoms family had to build Seacliff Drive as part of this residential project before it went forward. So we went to them and said, would you be willing to build a Class 1 trail separated from the road as part of the road project? And to our delight, they said, sure, we're going to have asphalt trucks and paving contractors. We'll do it. So we on Track said, gee, this is easy getting the Bay Trail built. Never guessing it'd be here 16 years later. The challenge started with the Seacliff residential project, going through the city permit process. We had great support from the city council, the planning department, and the Bay Trail was required as part of the conditions of approval for the project along the project perimeter on Seacliff Drive and Brickyard Cove Road. And the developer even agreed to extend the trail off the property to the west side of Brickyard Landing if the land was available for the Bay Trail. Well, this was private land, and here's where the private sector comes in as being really critical. The first piece of land west of Brickyard, west of Seacliff Estates toward Ferry Point was owned by Cove Investments. And here luck comes in. They needed permits from BCDC for office development across the street. And BCDC required them to give an easement to the city to build the Bay Trail. One piece. The next one, the challenge was in front of Brickyard Landing. The sun is out. The Bay Trail guys are here. In front of Brickyard Landing was railroad land owned by Burlington BNSF. Thank you. Burlington Northern Santa Fe. Thank you, Alan. And railroads are hard to deal with. Anybody knows that, I think. But the Brickyard Landing folks wanted to buy that land. But there's a problem. There were railroad tracks and creosote ties. So track came in and went to BNSF and said, with your permission, we will arrange to remove the track and ties. And to our delight, they said, okay. So we went out for bids. We got bids. Contractors were willing to pay us for the right to remove the rail because steel was valuable then. So they removed all the rail and track in front of Brickyard Landing, all the way out to Ferry Point, and also in East Bay Regional Park District land. That was great. Brickyard Landing bought this land from the railroad. Brickyard Landing owners generously conveyed the needed trail easement to the city. Okay, we're ready to go. Toll Brothers, meanwhile, had taken over Seacliff Estates. We said, okay, now you can extend the trail to the front of Brickyard Landing. They said, wait a minute, this easement requires us to put in landscaping. We didn't agree to that. Well, Bill Lindsay, the city manager, took him to the woodshed, said, okay, the city will put in the landscaping, but you guys got to build the trail if you want a certificate of occupancy. So that got 1.4 miles of trail built through all that. Meanwhile, all that was going on. The Bottoms Family Trust owned contaminated land on the other side of Seacliff Estates, back from World War III, World War II shipbuilding. And at the same time, the city was cleaning up Point Petroleum Marine Terminal, and the Bottoms family wanted to dispose of their hazardous materials as part of the city's capping. And the city attorney agreed to our proposal that that's fine, but they got to give you a shoreline trail easement. And they did. So that'll give you some idea of why it took a long time to get access to the land. And finally, Toll Brothers did build the Bay Trail sections we're talking about. So that set the stage for the city of Richmond, East Bay Regional Park District, to proceed to build the next 2 miles of Bay Trail.
Well, that wore me out just thinking about it. One thing I need to tell you, Bill Lindsay was scheduled to be here and would have been our next speaker, but he's out of town. He had a death in the family. I believe his father-in-law passed away. So what I think, among other things, what he would tell you that I'm going to tell you now is that is all of the help and assistance that came from City of Richmond departments and staff to make this happen. Bruce has already mentioned part of it. You know, the City Council has been consistently supportive of the Bay Trail from the beginning, and the Planning Department, Public Works Department, Engineering, Port, there may be others. All of them have pitched in and done what they needed to do to get these trail segments permitted, to get the grants in, and to get them built. So next, I will be introducing East Bay Regional Park Board of Directors President, Richmond resident Whitney Dotson, who will then introduce East Bay Regional Park Assistant General Manager Bob Nisbet to discuss not only Bay Trail sections completed in the Miller-Knox Regional Park, but also plans for Bay Trail connections with Point Melotti and Point Pinole Regional Shoreline. 10 miles of gaps remain in the Bay Trail plan for Richmond, and the East Bay Regional Park District is playing a major role in closing these gaps. Whitney.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here as a part of this beautiful environment, and it's also very much a pleasure to be able to come and address the excuse me. It's very close to me, the whole area, the plunge and the tunnel, all of it. I remember growing up as a kid, and I learned to swim right across the street at the plunge. Excuse me. Being a part of Richmond has been a very important part of my life, and to see it continually grow like this is just an amazing sight for me. I'm just really excited about that, and to be involved in saving some of the important shoreline around the Richmond area has been very important to me. I grew up right next to Point Pinole Park, and the and that's been a wonderful experience. As a young kid, it's understanding what's happening is very important for kids to stay involved with all of the activities that you see going on, and to nurture and raise the next generation of those interested in saving the wetlands, and also all of our natural environments. It's very, very important. We After doing a lot of work in the field around saving Point Pinole, Bruner Marsh, uh, the other major activity that we were involved in was to the I'm having a rough time here. Excuse me. Is to planning the Bay Trail, and never worked with a person as hardworking as Bruce, and which all of you probably know Bruce, and that led us up to all of these points. So organized uh, community involvement and sponsorship of all of this has been really a very important part of the whole process. The I'm gonna stop. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. But I guess the other point that I wanted to make was that working with all of the different people that you see sitting up here, has been going on for many years. I mean, the energy generated by long-term relationships to make things happen is very important, and that's what that I've seen over the last 15. How many years you say it was, Bruce? 15 years. I mean, of hard work to make all of this happen, and it's very important for the kids to stay involved and understand exactly what's going on, and participate in all of the programs of East Bay Regional Parks. Now I'm going to turn it over to Bob Nesbitt, who is one of the park planners for the district. Very sharp. Has been with the district a little bit over 2 years, but this is the person to talk to.
Thank you, Whitney. Thank you very much for having us today. I want to acknowledge one more time two of our other directors that are here, Director Beverly Lane and Director Diane Burgess to my left, to your right. Yeah, so we at East Bay Regional Park District, we love doing these ribbon cuttings. They're so exciting because when we're doing them, we're opening a new trail, a new open space, a new park, a new amenity for the public, and they're just so exciting. Sometimes we do them ourselves. Sometimes we do them in partnership with a lot of other partners who help complete all these important projects. And sometimes we get invited just to simply congratulate others on doing these projects as well. And that's what we're doing today. This is such a great project by the city of Richmond to complete this loop. What I think so cool about the Bay Trail and so intriguing about it is that it is a loop. It's a loop around the bay. It's really this amazing concept that we could have a public trail access to a complete loop around the bay. And what Richmond has done here with this little segment behind you connecting to the tunnel is complete a loop within the loop, a little small 4-mile loop that's part of the Bay Trail. And people like being able to start at one point and make a loop and see all the things that are along that loop. And so I think that's a really cool aspect of what they've done today. So we'd like to congratulate the city of Richmond and TRAC on completing this loop. And also, as the mayor mentioned a couple projects that are upcoming. So our partnership with the city of Richmond is a really important one. It's a great partnership. We meet with them on a regular basis. We talk about projects that they'd like to see, projects that we're working on, and we're constantly looking for ways to work together so we can get things done so they benefit our constituents and their constituents. And 3 projects, and I'll kind of go from south to north, that we're working on in partnership with Richmond. First, Bruner Marsh is a project we've been working on for years. Phase 1 is completed, and this year we'll move into Phase 2, which is the important aspects of this project, where we'll start to open up public access to the marsh. This project will begin this year, be completed in early 2017. And then in 2017, really the critical component that was mentioned earlier is a very important segment of the Bay Trail, a boardwalk segment that'll connect the marsh to Point Pinole. So that'll be happening in 2017, hopefully completed in 2017, maybe 2018. Very important segment. Miller Knox, which if you haven't seen it, some of you will see it today if you take a little walk through the tunnel. This is a park that the 4-mile loop goes through that's completed today, and we're going to be doing some much needed improvements in that park. Not a part of the Bay Trail so much, but just improvements that are needed, amenities, new restrooms, some landscaping to make that park better. So that's happening. And then the third project I want to mention is at the very beginning stages, and that's a trail, about 2.5-mile section of Bay Trail, kind of a spur trail at Point Melody. And again, this is a project we're working on in partnership with Richmond. Part of the trail is on an easement owned by the district, and part of the trail is in parkland owned by the city. That project is in the very early stages, about 2.5 miles long, and we hope to complete that in 2018 as well. All 3 of these projects that I mentioned are funded in part, variety of funding sources, but in part by Measure CC. Measure CC, if you don't know, is a measure that many of you approved 10 years ago along with other communities in the East Bay. And it's this funding source that's going to help complete some of these projects that I'm mentioning. And this funding source goes through 2020. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And just congratulations to the City of Richmond on completing this great section.
So one thing I want to correct both of these guys on, they keep calling that place out there by Point Pinole, they keep calling it Bruner Marsh. The City Council of Richmond went to a great effort about 2 years ago to rename that Dotson Marsh. And we need to train these people to use appropriate terminology. And you know, there's a little bit of a story behind that. Bruner was just a guy who owned it for a few years. And as far as we know, he never contributed anything to the marsh or the city or anything else. While Dotson here, you know, made it all happen. So we gotta get our terminology right. I just saw my right-hand man and Vice Mayor J.L. Myrick show up here. Welcome, J.L. And our next speaker is going to be our State Senator, Lonnie Hancock.
Thank you, Tom, and good morning, everyone. This is a great day. I've watched a number of these segments up and down the bay happen, and Richmond, with the longest shoreline, is one of the very most important pieces of that. And just sitting here, I couldn't help but think, this, everybody, is what government does when it works. And this is what dedicated, relentless, persistent citizen advocacy does when it works, and it usually does. And I just want to thank TRAC again for being the people that never let up, that keep our minds on it, that keep us going. So as we think about what we've accomplished together as a community, because so many people were involved, every level of government, from the state legislature to the City Council of Richmond to Contra Costa County to the Park District to the Conservancy, the San Francisco Bay Conservancy via the Coastal Conservancy, all of these structures that we created to allow us to pool our money and energy and do together what none of us could do as separate individuals. It's a great day. I want to look back for a minute and just thank Bill Lockyer, the state senator from this area, who in 1987, I think, came up with a big idea, SB 100. And Isabel Cortez, who's on my staff, said she remembers me telling her when she first came on about the Bay Trail and saying that when Bill Lockyer passed that bill, I never thought it was really going to happen. And it takes time. It's been more than 25 years, but piece by piece, working together, we do it. And we will get it done. Looking forward, I just want to tell you that right now, I know that our new pro tem in the state Senate, Kevin De Leon, is working on a new park bond. Because when this money is used up, we're going to need another round to complete the Bay Trail. And I know that Bob Doyle from the Park District has already been on my case to make sure that we really watch and make sure that we are going to get the money that we need to complete these great projects. Also, I want to remind people we do have the Bay Water Trail, and there are some wonderful touchdown spots in Richmond because it has so much good shoreline, so that every one of our kids can experience the bay in a kayak, somehow out in the water, in addition to looking at it from the shore. It's going to open opportunities for health for all of us and to enjoy the beauty, which is something we all need to see every day. And we're so blessed to live in this part of the world. And thank you to each and every one of you. It's a great day to be here.
Thank you, Lonnie. So our next speaker back in the day also used to be my right-hand man. At least he sat to my right on the city council. But he's moved far beyond that now. Our next speaker, our state assembly member, Tony Thurman.
Thanks, Tom. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I know you're ready to get out there and bike and run and walk, and it's exciting. I wanted to say congratulations to Bruce and all the folks at Track for all your great hard work. Let's give them another round of applause. Thank you so much. It really is a lesson in resilience and tenacity, as Senator Hancock said, and I thought, okay, let me do the math. 26 years ago to establish the Bay Trail. I wasn't even born yet. I wish. And then I woke up, right? And then Bruce starts to go through the history of all it took, over the course of 15 years to establish a few miles, all the agencies, all the conversations, all the meetings. First, I was having flashbacks because I was on the city council during part of that time. We joke, my office in the Capitol is numbered 5150. Hearing that story is enough to drive you to be 5150. We joke about it, but we do a lot of mental health policy to really support those who have needs around treatment. But, hearing the story really was a lesson in resiliency to work through all the various challenges that come up to create great access like this. And I'm just very proud. While I take the train up to Sacramento 3 days a week, and we take that train right by Dotson Marsh, we always come right back to Richmond every night. And it's because of that I'm proud as a Richmond resident, to be a part of what is the most amount of Bay Trail of any city in the 9 Bay Area cities that are participating in this. And as a dad, knowing that we spent the last 5 years celebrating our kids' birthdays right here in the park. My 9-year-old insists she doesn't want to go anywhere other than Miller Knox Park and Keller Beach. That's it. And so, it's an exciting thing to do as a former Richmond City Council member, being through some of those conversations and working to connect the pieces that are all part of the trail that you heard Bruce Byard talk about today, including the Rosie the Riveter Park, which Mayor Budd and Council members McLaughlin and others and I worked on to help create all these pieces. In the Assembly, we voted already in the Assembly. We passed a bill that's going to add another, restore a driving lane to the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge, but will create an opportunity to have bike access coming across the bridge and into Point Malate. So and that'll be coming to the Senate, and I know that the senator will be supporting it. And so as we talk about the future and these opportunities to connect the dots at Point Malate, we've also introduced a bill. It's called AB 932 that we think will provide support for parks and recreation. So what AB 932 will do is, if any Californian can purchase a license plate with their favorite professional sports team on it, and in California we have 24 professional sports teams. So we think, and so the proceeds from those purchases will go to support parks and recreation. And because in Richmond we know that 50% of our kids are obese, we want to create all kinds of great scenic opportunities for kids to get recreation and activity, and to do this throughout the state. So go Warriors, we want you to win the whole thing. So everybody buys their license plate with Warriors on it. We generate a lot of money for parks and recreation because we do want the state bond to get on the ballot, and we do want it to pass. But even with that, we're going to need additional dollars to support our parks, our open spaces, and our trails. So it's been an honor. I'm ready to get out of my uniform here and get out there on the trail. Thank you for being a part of it. Congratulations, track, and to everyone here in Richmond today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. So, Bruce helped me prepare prepare the notes for this morning. And, Bruce always does exquisitely detailed research. So he's put a lot of important trivia in here, including the fact that our next speaker, our cleanup speaker, our county supervisor, John Joya, has never missed a Bay Trail cutting in Richmond.
And that's out of respect to all the wonderful track folks and Bruce who've worked so hard over the years to make this happen. And as Lonnie said, Bill Lockyer's vision, Bill, 28 years ago would not been implemented if it wasn't for the hard work of community activists, and many of you here in the audience were part of that. So I want to first start by thanking all of you for all of the hard work over the past number of years to make all of this happen. So give yourselves a hand. And I don't need to tell you, we live in the greatest place on this planet, right? And it's not just because of the environmental beauty, it's because of how we feel about community. It's because of how we feel about coming together and making things like this happen. And, any of you who know Bruce and the track leadership team know they call you when they need your help. Tom Butt, Mayor Tom Bates and I serve on BCDC. And we'll get that call from Tom. BCDC is considering a project. We need to make sure there's going to be the right amount of public access and a trail. This doesn't happen easily. The puzzle pieces that Bruce talked about take a lot of hard work to put together, and a lot of individuals and a lot of organizations. The trail, I live on the Bay Trail at Marina Bay. And I can tell you, and you all know this, is that this trail, the people who use the Bay Trail in Richmond and other cities in the Bay Area represent every segment of our population in the Bay Area, right? And that's what the people who it is so great to wake up every morning, and I see my neighbor Alan occasionally out there with one of his new contraption bikes, right? Whether you're walking, skateboarding, walking your dog, running, biking, it brings our community together. It's not just, it improves our health. It develops an environmental stewardship that young people, see every day when they're out on the trail and they see the wetlands. But it brings us together as a community. To me, that seems to be the most important thing that it does, and it builds our support to do more of this. I mean, living in, a heavily urbanized area, it is so important to have these spaces we can go to develop, to enjoy nature, but also to develop stewardship of taking care of our community. And I want to, I'm the last speaker, so I'm going to be short. I want to close with one item which I think is really important about what we can do. I see Amy Worth here, who's on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and the Transportation Authority. We have a chance in this county to develop more funding to make projects like this happen, and you can all be a part of that. The sales tax, the half-cent sales tax that we pay here in Contra Costa, is up for renewal and extension and possibly an expansion next year. And there's an effort going on to develop a project list. And let me tell you, pedestrian and bicycle projects which help our health, help the quality of life. We have a chance to put more money in that sales tax measure in 2016 for these types of projects. So I think we can all go out and show the positive results of that money with this type of project and get more of it so we can do more, help complete the rest of the Bay Trail, not only in Richmond, but around the whole Bay Area, so that we can really come together as a community. And finally, this year is the 50th anniversary of BCDC, and I know there's going to be a celebration about that later. BCDC was the first regional agency in the United States to look at the Bay from to look at a regional plan for in this case the Bay. It was the first time that cities and counties land use authority had to be approved by a regional agency, and that's why we ultimately have all this public access around San Francisco Bay. It was the hard work also of actually 3 women from Berkeley and El Cerrito who helped organize and get the legislation passed to get BCDC approved. So it's all of this great effort, as Lonnie said. When government, this is how we show that government can do things right, and it takes citizens on top of watching the process to make sure it's carried out. So thank you to everybody, and especially the leadership of this gentleman. I know he's modest, right? The whole steering committee, yeah, it is a whole steering committee, but I just want to say Bruce has exercised tremendous leadership over the years, and I think we all owe you a debt of gratitude.
Thank you, John. So next comes the true test of our organizational ability. So listen carefully. This is what we will do. We will cross the street to the plunge. We will be careful and not get run over. We will assemble in front of the plunge for a giant photo op. We will cut a ribbon. You will have already picked up your Bay Trail guide over here, and after the ribbon cutting, you will go forth to enjoy the Bay Trail. So we'll see you over across the street. 1, 2, 3.